Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Tonight, as always, we're coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering, and I'll be your host tonight, Rob Fawcett. Looking forward to reviewing a magnificent 6-0 victory over Kilmarnock before we preview the visit that we've got to Dingwall on Sunday. I'll introduce my guest in a minute, but before I do that, I want to encourage you to visit the Gersnet website. Not only do we have our main website with a host of quality articles and online museum, but it also hosts our forums, which are a great place to keep up to date with the latest Rangers news and discussion. We're live tonight on YouTube, and we'd ask that you continue to spread the word amongst your friends and family, share the pod on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as stop by the forums and join in the chat there too. Now, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a number of years, and we are delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand, and for more information on that, you can email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, bringing you to my guest. He's becoming a regular fixture on the Gersnet podcast. Mr. Alan Rogers, how you doing, mate?
Very well, thanks, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. It kind of feels weird to have something positive to talk about on a pod for a change, which is nice. You know, it's not only did we get a result that we were craving for, but we actually got a performance and a change of shape from the manager, as we'll touch on in a wee bit.
Yeah, no complaints this week. So yeah, happy faces all round, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we'll probably get the negative stuff out of the way first of all, because obviously we had the AGM this week. I think there's a couple of wee things that come out from it, and it'd be good to get your opinion on it. I think obviously one of the big things was the Copeland delay. It was always going to be a discussion topic within the club. I think the fact that it's probably going to cost us a couple of $100,000 by the time we factor in having to hire Hampden, etc. But it pretty much came across as the club were definitely laying the blame of this at the contractors with we ordered the steel at the time we were told. But I think it ties into the boardroom shake-up that they mentioned as well about it being, reconfigured and refreshed, I think was the tagline that they trotted out. I'm in two minds about this because I think we've heard all this before about boardroom shake-ups, and we're going to get Rangers men and people for the west of Scotland on the board, and they'll have a real voice. I think the thing that really frustrates me, and it will come in with the next point we'll make around transfer fees, is that over the past few years, the mismanagement at our club has just been terrible. And we've got to have a proper refresh. Never mind that a small one. You know, we need to get people in who are professional and who know how to run football clubs, and more importantly, know how to get them bloody profitable. I mean, I don't know what your view on the AGM was, but what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the AGM to some extent was almost giving a wee bit of damage limitation, because nobody was particularly happy with the way the club was being run, and I expect the board were anticipating a bit of a skewering. And it was quite lucky for them, perhaps, that we put together our best performance of the season the night before, because everybody would have been in reasonably good spirits coming off the back of that, and to some extent maybe feels slightly harsh then having to go at the board off the back of such a good result. But I thought John Gilligan spoke as well as he could speak. You know, he's up there. We all know him. We know he's a good player. We know we can trust him. We know he'll do his best. Like, at his age, you know, having been retired for 10 years, to come in and then say, right, I'll do the job because he's got a sense of duty. You know, I think we owe something to him. And, you know, John Gilligan, along with, you know, Dave King and Paul Murray, were absolutely pivotal back in 2015, you know, in saving the club when it was really, really circling the drain. So I think he spoke as well as he could, and the crowd gave him a good reception and gave him some leeway. And I thought he was honest. You know, speaking about the Copeland delays, these things do happen. As much as in the current climate, it's easy to really have a go at Rangers and say they've screwed it up, whatever, and then Rangers saying, well, what about the contractors? I'd imagine there was a bit of a gap on both sides. And of course, when you're bringing in steel from the other side of the world, of course there can be delays. Of course there can be unexpected hiccups and things you don't see coming and all the rest of it. So I've kind of moved on from that whole debacle, if I'm honest. We got to Hampden. It's going to cost us money. We've been told that we're going to learn from it and it won't happen again. Okay, fine. If we're going to do similar works in other areas of the stadium, then we need to plan it better, we need to time it better, and we need to be clear as to whether we actually want to do it during a closed season, because we can't have a repeat of this again. But we've been assured we won't have a repeat of this again. So let's see how that pans out. But I'm confident we won't be stuck at Hampden again in the early part of next season.
Yeah, I think if we don't learn any lessons from not only the form in the early part of the season with that move to Hampden, the cost of it, then to be honest, they deserve everything they get if they make such bad decisions in the future. In terms of the shaking up the board, I think it was welcome news. Obviously, the proof's in the pudding, or the proof of the pudding's in the eating. We need to see exactly what they mean by that, because at the moment it's just rhetoric. So let's see what they're actually going to do in terms of a refresh. I do think it makes sense looking at it to say, well, we've been run by the guys that are investing, primarily by the guys that are investing. We're grateful to these guys for investing in the club, allowing us capital so that we can operate and try and progress the way we'd like to. But it is unusual to have your investors running it day to day as well, particularly where the majority of those investors, they're based in the US or they're based in the Far East, have other business interests there, demanding jobs. They're not full time in Glasgow at Rangers doing the day to day. Guys like Bisgrove and Robertson, they're all gone now. So there's just gaps there in terms of people that will be here, 5-6 days a week, just running the club every day. And I think that's probably whereby they've lost something. You need someone on site pulling the strings and who can actually, all the decisions go through him. We know that that's the best way to run it, to have a CEO who's in charge and makes the decisions and is accountable. And that's key as well, because again, we're lucky to have investors that we trust and we know they support the club. You've got someone like George Latham at the moment is in, and we're told he's involved with John Gilligan and trying to find the new chairman, and he was involved in the new CEO. And that's great, but George Latham doesn't have a position at the club. He's a well-kent face, he's a shareholder, and we can trust him, and he'll do the best he possibly can. And we're grateful to him for giving up his time to do it. But again, he doesn't have office, which means he has no accountability if it goes wrong. And it's just a weird way the club's being run at the moment. We're just saying to guys that we know and guys we trust, do you want to do it? And we can't run it that way, even if we know that they're good guys. There has to be a proper structure and a proper accountability within it. But it sounds like that's something that the board have recognised and they're going to attend to. So let's see what the board looks like once we get a new chairman in place, once the new CEO starts early into next year, see who's coming on the board, because we need guys, as you say, guys that can both run a football club, they're familiar with Rangers, they're familiar with the West of Scotland, they're familiar with the hostility that we face in Scottish football, and we need guys that can operate the finance as well to get us profitable again, or at least reduce our losses, because those losses are unsustainable, completely unsustainable. And on top of that, of course, not asking for much, we need the new CEO, the new director of football, and Niels Kopp, and everyone else to start operating our player trading model as well. So not much to do there, but every journey starts with one step. So let's see how we get on in the new year when these changes are made. Absolutely. I think it was a nice little segue into the bit of frustration that I think I had the most about, which was the gasp, I think, in the room when it was talked about the fees for the likes of Lammers and Goldson and stuff, where it was a total of 800 grand. I mean, even for Robbie McCrory to leave Ibrox, for a pittance is terrible, because he's a good young Scottish goalkeeper. He was just never going to make it past Kelly and Butland at the moment and needed to move for his development. But I guess it does just highlight the historical mismanagement we've got there, because Lammers is a prime example of a player who broken a Dutch goal scoring record. We could have commanded 800 grand alone for him. Never mind getting that for the likes of Goldson, Cantwell, and whoever else left at the same time. It's just really frustrating that we seem to continually either pay off or get rid of folk for a pittance compared to certain other clubs that we go when the financial gap is so big with Champions League money and stuff anyway. And don't get me wrong, getting the wage bill down from 41 million to 35 million sounded like that was a direction that the club had to take. But it just sticks in your throat that there was a couple of sellable assets in there that probably could have got redeveloped into the team and brought in a couple of quality players, even another striker at that early start of the season. But I suppose it's focusing on the future now. As you say, Coppin's got a lot more responsibility. I think the early signs from him are promising, and the fact that he's targeting young players who are going to be hungry, who are probably going to have more of a sell-on value when it comes to when they perform and when they're ready to move on. I don't know if you've got any other comments on the AGM or anything else that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, that outgoing transfer business is just a shambles, let's be honest. And what really frustrates me, amongst other things, is when these players leave, when Sam Lammers left, right, the club made quite a big deal of saying, we got 2.53 million for him. And everyone was saying, that's great business, that's great. And now you realise that that was never true. That didn't happen. Yeah. Same as when Goldson left. Goldson, I was a fan of Goldson. He was a great servant for us. To sell him when he was on the decline, he'd lost pace, he'd lost a bit of physicality. To get, we paid 3.5 for him. He must have played well over 400 games, won a few things, European final, all that stuff. And then to get 1.5 million back from him, you think that's actually really good business. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But then it turns out actually that wasn't true either. And then, as you say, Robbie McCrory. I mean, McCrory's played in European games for us. He's played Old Firm games. He's been in Scotland squads. And we gave him to Kilmarnock seemingly for nothing, just about, or maybe low 5 figures or something like that. It just makes absolutely no sense that we're just willing to trade these assets off. And in terms of Robbie McCrory and Scott Wright, they won't have been on big wages. They won't have been guys that we thought we can't sustain their contracts. So why are we just giving them away? We just seem incapable of playing hardball. You can almost understand Goldson will be a top earner. He's got 2 years to go. I don't think it's a good look that Rangers basically say we don't want to pay the rest of your contract, you need to leave. And there has to be some financial jiggery-pokery to try and get him to leave. I don't think that reflects well on us at all. Because you should just be saying to him, you're an accomplished player, you're maybe just not quite at the level we get. Let's work with your agent and get you a move. We want 1.5 million for you. I've never seen another club encounter so much difficulty in trying to remove their players. And that comes off the back of, Lundstrom and Barisic and Morelos and Kent all being released for free. All guys who, at certain points in the Rangers career, if we asked them to leave or marketed them, we would have got really good money for all those guys at one point. And then, of course, you get the Cantwell situation whereby the manager just didn't fancy him. He didn't like the manager. And seemingly we've just taken the first offer we can get. Now, maybe he didn't have many offers. Maybe his attitude goes before him and it wasn't exactly in demand. But at the same time, you've got to think, well, is it not better that you keep him? Or you loan him out and say, look, have a good 6 months and see if we can get a fee or something like that. Unless he was just a total toxic influence in the dressing room and we just had to get him out. I don't see the justification in accepting what must have been 150, 200 grand for him or something like that. That will be less than we paid to get him early from Norwich. There's no question about that. We shouldn't be losing money on players like Todd Cantwell. And that's just where Rangers seem incapable. But look, it's done now. Let's put it behind us. We've been given all these promises about the way the player trading model is going to work, and we've learned our lessons from all this nonsense. So fine. Suddenly, and whisper it, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but suddenly there's a suggestion we might have a wee nucleus of reasonably good young players that we might be able to develop for a few seasons. So let's see if we can continue with their development. And then it comes to a point whereby we might have to say, now's the time that we need to sell them for maximum profit. And let's see what kind of fees we can command at that stage. We need to give the club a chance to rectify their errors of the past. So let's see how we go. But yeah, 0.8 million for that bunch of players is absolutely bloody ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So now that we've got the crap news of the week out of the way, we can move on to the good news, which is the Killie game actually. And I'll be honest, starting 11 comes out. Obviously, Camont's made a few tweaks to the lineup from St Johnstone, which was good. Balogun's come in for proper. Barron made way for Diamandi, and Barami was kind of left out for Danilo. I think for me, the initial thing was actually the shock of this looks like the manager's changed from his traditional system, immediately coupled by scepticism that, oh no, he's just going to play Eggman out on the left as a straight swap for Barami. But then hearing them in the pre-match saying, no, he's going to go with 2 up front, it kind of gave me a little bit of positivity heading into Ibrox. I think we were talking about this on the bus about how we were kind of feeling a bit down on some occasions when you're heading towards Ibrox on a really wet night. Well, what was your view in that lineup and hearing that we were going to start with 2? Well,
I mean, this is how vain I am. That before this podcast, I went back and listened to the podcast I did the other day with Craig when he'd said to me, "What do you want the starting lineup to be against Killie?" And I said, well, bring Diamandi in, I bring Danilo in, I bring Balogun in, I let Hadji keep his place. I got it spot on, right? It was perfection from me. So I was really pleased to see that lineup because it was precisely the one I wanted as a matter of record. Okay, so I was happy to see it, and as you say, even happier to see two up front. It seems like such an obvious thing for a supporter to say, but in a team that's struggling to score goals, which we were and are, probably have to say, to play one up front always seems a bit. Surely can you not put an extra man up there? Clement after the game said, "Well, how often have I had two fit strikers?" I think he was being a wee bit disingenuous there because last season we had Silva. And we played him out left. Maybe arguably points because we had no one else, but he has had the option to play two up front before and hasn't done it. And he's had it before this season again with Dessers. Danilo's had a few bench appearances. Igaman's been in and around it, and he hasn't done it. So I think it was Clement finally changing, and I'm hoping it is Clement finally changing because you could see the difference that Danilo made in the final third, just his presence. Because Killie wouldn't have been expecting that. The way Clement's been, it's always been that one up front. They wouldn't have been expecting an extra man in there. And you could see Danilo and Igaman and Czerny and Hadji all feeding off each other. They're all looking for each other. They're all trying to be around the corners and everything else. It was just much, much better to watch because you don't have the single lone striker, whether it's Dessers or Igaman or whoever, trying to play with his back to goal with three centre-halves behind him, kicking him. It doesn't work effectively. That's why we constantly push it out wide and hope for Barami or Czerny to do something magic to try and get us into the box. But that's just with the extra body in there. It gives them something to think about and it gives them something to be distracted by. And I thought it completely elevated our game. And I was really, really excited by it. And of course, the manager's change paid off because they returned the favour with the best performance of the season by a country mile, I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me it was interesting just to hear his comments about the first half against Dundee United. Maybe wanting a bit more creativity. And I think as fans, we've been really critical of Clement about his inflexibility and not willing to change systems. So I think equally, we've got to give him a little bit of credit that it's probably taken him longer than we would have liked to make that type of change and kind of look at trying something different in some of these games. But the fact that he's done it, fitness permitting, that's surely got to give a blueprint for the majority of the games that we're going to play in the SPL moving forward now, isn't it? You can't go back to this insistence of one up top and, the two holding midfielders against the majority of SPL teams. Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly it. It was bold in a sense because we're playing higher up to get the ball closer, to squeeze the play a little bit. Now, Killie, the guy Vassell up front has no pace, right? So you could probably push up a bit further because, he doesn't have pace. They do have a little bit of pace in the wings, but neither of their wingers were in the game whatsoever. So credit to the fullbacks for that. But I would say it would suit, as you say, this will suit the majority of domestic games that we're going to play. Just go two up front. As I mentioned on the pod the other week, the stat that came out of the game last weekend was games involving Rangers in the SPFL are the lowest scoring games, right? So on one hand, that means we're not conceding many, but on the other hand, it means we're not scoring many. And of course, if you do concede one, it's not such a big deal if you're scoring 3 or 4 regularly. But if you're conceding one when you're struggling to score, it's a big problem. And that has been our problem this season, conceding goals and then not being able to get goals at the other end. So if the solution is now, look, we're putting more guys up front, we're trying to flood the box a bit more, then happy days, because that should work in the majority of games that we're going to face here. And it certainly should work on Sunday, if that's what we stick to.
Yeah, no, hopefully, mate. And I think you're right what you say. The way that we started the game, first 50 minutes or so were really, really positive, actually. We moved the ball about really well. We created some really good chances. It wasn't just movement. We're actually playing with a pace that I don't think we've seen much at Ibrox before. Igaman had a couple of really good half chances that, with a wee bit of luck, might have had a different outcome. We almost scored from a set piece if it hadn't just been just behind John Souttar. But then it kind of felt like Groundhog Day a wee bit, because for the next 20 minutes or so, we just seemed to switch off and lose that momentum from the start. I heard that. I heard a few grumblings for the crowd, and Killie seemed to get a bit of a foothold in the game. And it's just a bizarre thing about this Rangers team at the moment, that we seem to be on top and we seem to be playing really well. and it's almost like there's a kind of a switch that goes on in their head that makes them forget how to play football for 15 minutes in a game before they then get back into the groove. It's, I think we've got to try and cut that out. Otherwise, other better teams than Killie would punish us.
Yeah, and that's been a problem for this team all season, is they can't really put together 90 minutes. You would say maybe Nice was the closest we got to it in a big game against good opponents, but we still didn't quite do the 90 minutes of complete control. So that's still our challenge now, is just to be able to control it from start to finish, and just for the game never to be in doubt. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Butland had a save to make on Wednesday night. Certainly can't remember one. Killie were never really in the game, but they were there to stifle us and to frustrate us. And as you say, after a bright opening spell, they were successful in doing it for sort of 10, 15 minutes or so. And the crowd, as usual, start to mump and moan and all the usual stuff. But that's why that opening goal was so important.
Yeah,
and I loved that opening goal, because I mean, it's if you look back, you can see Hadji's got the ball. You can see he looks up. You see Tav point and says, "I want it there," and Hadji just pinpoints it exactly where he wants it. And it's a really good finish as well, because it's easy to sort of sclaff that finish, but it's a really good finish from him. And that was absolutely crucial for us, because the crowd relaxed a little bit at that stage, because we knew Killie weren't really in it, weren't going to attack much. And that was the very least should have been the points in the bag. But it was a really, really controlled performance that got even better in the second half.
No, absolutely, and I think on that point, mate, I was really pleased actually for Tav at that point. To be honest, seeing him coming back into the team after all the shit that he's got this season, and don't get me wrong, some of it has been justified because there has been a drop off, and he hasn't been the same Tav that we've been used to. But I think it's demonstrated as to how important his goals used to be, and how we had become too reliant on a right back to get the numbers of assists and goals that we had been. But it was great to see that, and the ball in from Hadji was an absolute peach. You just knew as soon as that ball came in and Tav got to the end of it, regardless of how long VAR was going to look at it to try and see if it was offside or not. But it was just, I think it points to the fact that he is on his way out, but with rest and rotation, you can still get a good James Tavernier when he's required within some of these SPL games. And I think we as fans need to remember that sometimes. He's not going to he shouldn't be a starter every game going forward, but there are some games where if Sterling's out injured, because again he's not the most reliable, we've lost Casemiro, he is going to be playing, so we really need to support him. It was really good to see him score and then also assist later on in the game as well.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Watching that kind of brought back warm fuzzy feelings of 55. Hadji playing the ball to Tav, and Tav putting it in, and that's, as you say, that's 2 games in a row that's been crucial for us. Hadji playing a ball to the back post that Tav's attacking. I know it was an OG last weekend, but Tav has to be there to force that OG. And it's clearly that these guys have got a relationship because they play together so often, and they work well together. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, we've talked about Tav a lot. It's been done to death, really. I do think people over-criticise him. I don't think he was ever at the level whereby he wasn't capable of performing in Scottish football. And people do forget he was injured for the majority of pre-season as well. We can't overestimate how difficult that is for a player to get up to speed. Mm-hmm. Now he's had a wee rest. I think he's looked better for that rest. He seems a wee bit reinvigorated. As you say, that's okay. He's forced an OG. He's now got a goal. He's now got an assist in his last 2 games. So that's all positive from him, because the reality is, if we're to do anything positive this season, we are going to need him. We will need him. As you say, Cashmere's out the game. Sterling, we just can't rely on him, unfortunately. We know that now. So if there's to be anything positive come from this season, Tav's going to play a part, and he's going to play a big part. So let's just get behind him and stop needling him and waiting for him to make a mistake and getting on his back because of some weird agenda that a small bolus of Rangers supporters seem to have. It's just tiresome.
Absolutely, mate. And that kind of takes us to half time. 1-0, it's always a dodgy game. But second half, I think we kind of started really quickly, which was brilliant to see. The players came out with a bit of hunger, whether that was a kick up the backside from the backroom staff and management team. But we added the second and third goals really, really quickly after that. Hadji with another assist, a great ball across for Danilo, and then Egeman with a fantastic finish after a mistake from a Killie defender. There's lots that we can talk about with those 2 goals, but first of all, I just want to touch on the impact that Hadji had tonight. You and Craig on the last pod, picked him to be the 10 in the 10 against Celtic. I think on that showing he's given us a glimpse of what he can actually deliver. He's got to be a stick on for that now, surely, with the form that he's shown over the last couple of games. And
yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's not even in doubt. And we've seen this season, Lawrence did well enough as a 10. He got a good few goals. You also got to remember, Lawrence played the majority of his career in England as a kind of left-sided midfielder. He's not a natural 10. We've tried to put Diamandi in there. He's clearly not a natural 10. Barami's not seen that role yet, or he's the odd game here and there, but hasn't really done it for me. I think he's still in his settling in period. Whereas Hadji's come back into the team and he looks like he's got something to prove. And to be honest, I think he probably does have something to prove, given that he was bombed out initially. But he's coming in and he's having an impact, and he looks comfortable in that position. We know he's decent with both feet. We know he's got good vision. We know he lacks pace, right? That's fine. The one area of the pitch you can maybe get away with lacking pace is the number 10. It's more about picking up spaces, and lifting your head and playing the wee passes in. And that's what's exciting about it. Because even back when he was playing in 55, he usually tended to be either left or right side.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I know someone's going to put me up in the comments saying on Wednesday he played kind of off the left, and yeah, I know he did, but his role was to drift in, and to be a nuisance where he could see the space, and that's where his attributes really come to the fore. And it speaks now in his own, speaks to his ability and his stats now. I think he's had 4 starts now, and I think he's on 4 assists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the kind of numbers we need from somebody playing that number 10 position. And I think I would keep him in the team from here on. Touch wood, he stays fit, but he stays in my team without question. And I think he's there on merit. It's not about what he did in the past. It's not about him being a previous favourite or whatever it may be. He's there because his form merits his position in the team.
Absolutely. And I think for me, the difference between him and Lawrence as well is that you're probably going to get a bit more working back from Hadji. I think you saw some moments of that on Wednesday night where he was back in maybe the defensive third of the pitch, looking to receive the ball, get on it and try and influence the game from there, starting the move as well. So I agree. I mean, I think it's a shame that he was kind of looking to try and get a move away in the summer, because we really probably could have done with him at the start of the season. But he's come back in, he's made a real impact, and I think he can only get better as he gets to know the players around him, because there's a lot of new relationships there that he's got to form. And, there was a few occasions on Wednesday night where he was the one that was going for the danger pass. He was trying to split the lines. He was trying to play that killer pass, and we've really lacked that, especially against teams that want to sit and defend against us. We've no way of unpicking that lock. I think Barami will come good because we've seen glimpses. The problem we've had is that he's been stuck out left, and again, he'll be fighting with Hadji for that 10 position now. But at least it gives us options, which is great, and it's really good to see him back in the team.
Yeah, and I think it's one of these things you can see when watching the game. The other players trust Hadji with the ball. They're giving him the ball in tight spaces because they know he's good at holding on to it. And I thought on Wednesday he was really good at taking it on the half turn, just moving into space, not moving huge distances with it, but just into enough space just to buy himself a second or two to pick a pass and just play the ball through. Because opponents hate that. They hate people moving into space, and he's got that natural instinct where he can just pick up his spots. And it was really, really good to see and positive to see. And that's why I think that was a big part of the game as well. As much as the two up front really helped, I think Hadji playing in his natural position and being able to spot those spaces and spot those passes was a big factor in how well we played.
Absolutely. Danilo was the other one involved there in getting another injury comeback goal. Hopefully we're not going to see too many more of them, because it means he's had another injury. But I think he played pretty well. I think had a couple of good chances to score. I have to say, maybe I'm being really overcritical, but I think the one in the second half, I think he's got to be taking that kind of chance. But I'm going to put that down to rustiness. I'm going to give him a bit of forgiveness that, because he's just coming back from injury and he's had that limited game time. But seeing him and Igaman in that team tonight offering the movement that they did, I think that clearly puts Dessers down into the third place behind both of them when it comes to starting strikers. But again, he comes off the bench and scores a couple. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we rotate the three of them going forward, and what kind of nuances with the different relationships we'll see depending on the team that we're going to come up against.
Yeah, and that's what's quite positive about it moving forward, because we now have these three. Now, I'm going to be controversial here, right? So whisper it. I would be quite interested to see how Dessers and Danilo get on as a front two, because Ingeman's not going to play every game. Yeah. I would be quite interested to see how Dessers and Danilo get on playing as a two, because Dessers, he's not a lone front man. You can see it. He doesn't have the attributes to be a lone front man. But playing in that system that we played on Wednesday night, even when he came on, okay, Killie were tired and the game's done, so everyone's a bit more relaxed. But those two finishes were excellent. Yeah. They're the sort of finishes we don't see often enough from Dessers. And he just seemed to function and to turn up more in that system as well. Because he'll want to play with people closer to him as well. Again, playing with back to goal, that's not what he wants to do at all. Mm-hmm. So as much as we all have misgivings about him, similar to Tav, if we're to get anything from this season, we're going to need all three of them. And that includes Dessers. And he's now our top scorer, and he's top scorer in the league, which I didn't realise. So he's got his part to play. And as I say, those two finishes on Wednesday give us a wee bit of hope. Maybe the spell out the team has done him some good as well, whether it's a kick up the backside, whether it's just a wee bit of rest or whatever. That might help him too. But I think he'll have his part to play as well. But I really, really, really want Clement to stick with that system, the close front two with the 10 behind them. And then with Czerny out wide. It's a slightly uneven, slightly unbalanced system, you probably have to say. But it worked really, really well the other night. And everybody played their part, and I don't think anybody was below an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that point, I mean, it's taken us a while to see Egeman, but the signs are really promising. I think the way that he took that goal, using the defender as a bit of a shield, and the power he got in the shot to kind of slot it in that kind of near corner. He looks a strong boy. He likes a trick. He's no shy. I mean, the flowing move that we played in the first half with a cheeky wee back heel flick to finish. What a goal that would have been if it had gone in. But I think there seems to be a bit of a maverick in there, which is nice, a bit of unpredictability. And if we can bed him in, I think the boy's got a really good future at Ibrox.
I mean, it's really good to just be excited about a young player coming in, especially a young player we've never heard of. We plucked from a league that we probably couldn't even name a club in that league. And he is raw. I mean, there's no question about it. You can see that he's raw and he's got a good bit to go. But as you say, he just got that something in him. That goal on Wednesday, it came actually, I think the ball was kind of given away and he picked it up loose and he drives in, and you think, right, he's going to have to lay it off because the defender's right in front of him. And to just sort of boff it right into and it curls slightly out from in as well. There's more technique to it than just a slam. And it's right in the bottom corner and it's from outside the box. And he's capable of scoring these different types of goals. We've seen him clean through and finishing well. And we've seen him now. He did it in the European game against Bucharest. He's done it there, finishing with a defender in front of him as well. And as you say, that sweeping move in the first half, he actually wins the ball to start that move. He comes in, brings it in his chest, takes it down and sprays it out to Czerny. I mean, that's good, intelligent play. It's his back to goal. It's using his strength. And he's making the run, getting into position, for what would have been a brilliant goal if it had just crept in. So there's a real excitement about Egeman. And again, you don't want to put too much pressure on him. But, on one hand, you want to say, well, hang on, can he cope with the pressure? Playing for Rangers is pressure. He's 22, he doesn't speak the language. He's coming in for, basically his first season in Europe. But look what he's done. I mean, that's 4 goals already. And, how high is his ceiling? How high can he go? There's already talk in the press about him being watched by Morocco and things like that. And if he gets to the point you start getting into their international team, Morocco did really well at the Euros recently, and they did really well at the Olympics. So you never know where he can go. But for now, let's just enjoy him and let's see where he can get to. But I think the crucial thing for him is keep playing him. Let's keep playing him. I'm not saying absolutely every game because, there will need to be rotation. It's a tough schedule we've got coming up. But let's keep playing him because he's only going to develop when he's playing games. And yes, he'll make mistakes. Yes, he'll have poor games and all the rest of it. But let's get behind him. We've got a 4-year contract with the boy, so let's see what he can deliver. Because, goals can make Rangers' careers. And we've got a big game coming up on a week on Sunday that's absolutely crucial for the manager. And right now, I think every single Rangers fan would have Egeman starting that game, which even a month ago, people would have said wouldn't have been possible. So let's go with the guy in form and let's see what he can do.
Aye, and I'll jump ahead. We'll come back and there's another player that I want to mention from the Killie game. But just when you mention young players getting the chance to play, it brings up a point that the manager made in the presser for the Ross County game. I think he spoke about the difference between the way that the Dutch league look at youth development in football and the way it happens in Scotland, and around the opportunities that gives to youth players to be able to play a good level of competitive football. And he was saying that having a second team in the league that's controlled by the club is going to give you more opportunities to give those young players an opportunity to grow, make mistakes, to get first team football. Whereas if you loan them to a club, the manager of that club might not fancy them after 2 games because they made a mistake and they're a 16-year-old boy. There's 2 parts to that, I guess. Is it a little bit hypocritical of our manager talking about giving young players opportunity within the first team when we're still giving minutes to the likes of Kieran Dowell ahead of maybe a Bailey Rice, a Cole McKinnon or somebody from the youth setup? Or do you think it's a fair assessment on the approach that we seem to have taken in Scottish football at this moment in time, where there is no competitive setup for our young players and the development seems to be getting stifled?
Yeah, I think it's fair, just for the reasons you've just outlined. Just think about that again. No competitive setup for our reserve team. What? That beggars belief. We tried the Lowland League thing and that didn't really work because standard was too low and everything else. But now we've basically got a B team playing friendly matches all season. There's no way to develop in that kind of environment. Even under 21 football, even under 21 leagues and things like that, even they can be a bit of a difficult environment to assess how good a player can really be once it becomes really competitive and tackles start flying in, there's pressure and everything else. But just getting them familiar with the basics and the surroundings and just having something to play for, it just seems like such a no-brainer for me. And it's bewildering that we just don't have it in Scotland because we're not bringing through enough young players. We're not. But I do have sympathy with the manager on that because the manager's under such pressure that it's really difficult to put young players in. We've even seen it with McCausland getting a bit of stick this season. And McCausland's fine as a squad player. He's contributed pretty well, but he gets stick from the crowds, and they say, he's not good enough. And we write players off really, really quickly. So I can understand why he's reluctant to put young players in at this crucial point in time at the very least. But at the same time, I do have faith that if a youngster comes through that's blatantly good enough, then he will get game time. So it's a bit of a balancing act between making sure your youngsters are good enough to make an immediate impact versus making sure that you give them the tools and the environment to prove that they're good enough to make an immediate impact. And at the moment, you can't have one without the other. So I think we just need to focus on the B team at the moment and getting them involved in some sort of professional, some sort of competitive setup, whether it's a B team in the championship or whatever. That was did I not go to a vote quite recently about B teams in the championship and get voted down or something like that?
I think there was. I think the Lowland League was the compromise when that all happened. But again, all you do is you make sure you have it as like they do in Spain and the Dutch leagues where those teams can't be promoted. You'll have also more money flowing down to the teams that to the leagues that these teams play in, because no doubt there'll be a selection of our fan base that will go and watch those teams play in League 2, League 1, Championship, whatever league it may be, because it's another Rangers team to go and watch. Yeah. So it'll naturally.
If you've got B team, imagine the old firm B teams playing the Championship. They're both close to the top, and it's the end of the season, and you move the game to Ibrox or something like that. You'd sell tickets for that. Yeah, it's kind of it just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. But the high Hegians at Scottish football are not known for their progressive thinking. So let's see how far it gets. But no, I think the manager was right on it, and he's clearly frustrated by it, and I think correctly so, because it seems like a ludicrous setup that we've got.
Yeah, I'm sure the £500,000 a year man Neil Doncaster has got a plan up his sleeve to sort that out.
A 2-year notice period. How's he wrangled that? That is absolute genius. Whoever his lawyer is, fair play. I'd off my cap. 2-year notice period.
So to go back to the Killie game, I just wanted to give a special mention to Nico Raskin. I think he put in another brilliant performance, even channeling his inner Terry Butcher with his headwear after that head knock. But he was instrumental in the build up to Czerny's goal last night with his twinkle toes as he kind of strolled through the Killie defence. How are you viewing his performances since returning to the team, and do you think he's beginning to fulfil that early promise that we saw when he first signed?
It's by far and away his best run of form. By far and away, especially when you take into account the team. the team's not playing well. It's not in a good place, and the fans are edgy and all this kind of stuff. So to come in and take control like he has, and what is he? He's about 22, Raskin. He's still young, and still learning to get settled in at Rangers and exactly what the demands of this league are. But he's taken command in that midfield, and he's another one, much like I said with Hadji earlier, he's another one that his teammates seem to trust him with the ball. They like giving him the ball because they know he'll turn and he'll find space and he'll pick passes. And then, as you say, the other night, moving into the ball, I mean, if you watch that back, there's 5 Killie players around him, and he's just dancing away from them all. And then I think he does get a wee bit lucky at the end. I think it does break sort of to Cherny, and Cherny finishes well. But just that moving into the box, carrying the ball, and nobody was able to get the ball off him, it's something that we've rarely seen at Ibrox. And he's playing really, really well. And again, he's one of those guys that wasn't really featuring at the start of the season, and we thought, oh, what's his future? But he's fought his way in. And I thought his press conference today was interesting when he's talking about, he looked at it and he gets the chefs to make him food to take home. I thought, although he did say, as a young person, it's hard to eat well at night. And I sort of went, well, is it? It's really just don't order stuff, mate. But, that aside, he's saying he's getting the chefs so he can take meals home and he knows when to eat and all that stuff. And I do think he looks trimmer because he's quite a small, stocky guy anyway. And you think if he's a wee bit heavy, it'll be obvious on him. And I think it maybe was obvious on him at certain points. But he looks slimmer now. He looks more mobile. He's covering the ground much quicker. And he's playing with confidence. That's a real crucial thing. He's playing with confidence and he's trusting himself with the ball. And he's making passes and he's lifting his head. He's bringing other players in. And again, he's another one that even a month, 6 weeks ago, if you'd have said, would you start Raskin in a big game against Celtic? People said, nah, no chance. Whereas now, everybody wants him in that starting lineup a week on Sunday. Everybody. In fact, not to skip ahead with that, but it's a wee bit of a headache for the manager, that. Because, people want Barron to start. They're going to want Raskin to start. Diamandi, do you drop him out? Because now we want Hadji in the 10. And then Barami, does he play in the left? Or, Redvan, do you put him in the left? It's suddenly there's a wee bit of option there for the manager. And it's a positive headache for him to have. And that's in no small part to guys like Raskin coming in and taking their chance, which is exactly what we needed them to do.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I was going to touch on that bit of the presser actually, because it was when he was asked about the injuries that he'd got, and he did make a point of it to say that he'd had the 4 injuries. I think was it in 18 months. He spoke about taking personal responsibility, and he was talking about carrying too much weight, muscle. So he was trying to get a little bit lighter to be able to avoid those injuries, and you can see that since he's come back. I mean, I've mentioned it a couple of times where he visibly looks slimmer, and I guess it's we always talk about players getting it and being professional, but I think that's a really good example of a first team player to be setting to the younger players who are training with the first team day in, day out. He's struggled with injury. He's now fought his way back into team, but he's made changes in his own personal lifestyle by getting the chefs in and by being critical of, I guess, his own lifestyle and the way that he's built his body up to make that change to be a better performing player for Rangers. We've got to see more of the players at Ibrox, I think, do that, especially some of the younger players, because I think there's been a history of, as soon as they get an appearance for the first team, they think they've made it and potentially let bad habits creep in. So for me, I was really heartened to hear that and the kind of professional approach that he's taken to his own development.
Yeah, and a team of good athletic players will get you quite a bit of the way in Scotland. They really will, because of the way the football is up here. I'm not saying it would win you the league, but if you've got athletic guys that can go shoulder to shoulder, but they're fit and they're fast across the ground, then that'll go a good bit of the way to getting us where we want to be. So Raskin's been a part of that, and you look into Diamandi's pretty fit, athletic guy. Yefti, I think people don't give him credit for his pace because he's much faster than people think he is. Guys like that coming into the team and really making a difference is exactly what we want to see. Because if we've got a big opponent that got to reluctantly accept they've got a better squad than us now, they're spending more money than us now. If we're going to beat them, how are we going to beat them? And one of the ways we can beat them is by being faster, being fitter than them, and taking the game to them. And get players like that are in really good physical condition will be key to an approach like that.
Absolutely. And we better wrap up the Killie game, otherwise Frankie will kill us for about 2 hours over. Who was your man of the match last night? Wednesday night.
It was Raskin. Raskin was my man of the match, closely followed by Hadji, closely followed by Igaman. So it's nice to have options for the man of the match all of a sudden. But as I said earlier on, no player dropped below an 8 out of 10. And even the subs came on. Even Dowell had a hand in the last goal, a nice ball through to Tav. Desser's coming on, getting a double, and things like that. So, it's suddenly, just let's not go crazy, but we can be quietly optimistic that maybe the team's settling a wee bit, that they're picking up a wee bit of form just at the right time, and because it's the crucial period ahead.
Yeah, and it brings us to that game at Dingwall on Sunday. I think for me it would be great to see continuity in lineup, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we've got a bloody big week with another two big games as well. That being said, to be honest, Ross County's the big game that we've got to focus on. How would you like to see, I guess, the manager lineup for that Ross County game? Do you think it is going to be the same type of lineup, or do you think he's going to make a few tweaks, given that we've got those games v Spurs and Celtic coming up?
I think it'll be the same type of lineup. I certainly want him to stick with the same system, same approach. Mm-hmm. Given that Danilo and Hadji aren't in the European squad, I would keep them both on the side. Again, be tempted to give Higaman a wee rest. Maybe bring Dessers in to partner Danilo up front. Just give Higaman a rest, because this is a schedule that he won't be used to. He's been playing a lot since Nice. So maybe bring Dessers in. Probably bring Barami back in as well. Maybe I'm tempted to rest Czerny. See what just to save him for two big games coming up. But again, it's options now the manager has. He's got that good headache. Unfortunately, we don't have, well, Sterling might be back, I suppose. I don't think the manager mentioned him today. But we don't have Casemiro or Sterling. If we did, I'd be tempted to rest Tab as well. And we've got options then. Does Barron come back in? I think we'd probably be tempted to bring him back in and then maybe drop Deal. It's good that we've suddenly got a squad that seems like there's options in there. I'd be tempted maybe to play Redvan as well, give Jefty a wee rest. So whatever lineup we come up with, I want them to stick with the two up front with Hadji behind them, because that's the way to goals, and that's what we need. One up front, the small tight pitch like Dingwall, we've not been good up there over the past couple of fixtures. So I think we just need to take the game to them, and we need to get need to get the ball in the net a few times just to take the pressure off. Because as you say, we're all in a relatively good place and we're looking forward to it. If we fail to win on Sunday, everything's gone tits up again. So it is the most important game that we need to look at. But I'm confident the team will do it.
Yeah, and that was one of the points I was going to make, mate, because I think these types of games are the stuffy fixtures that have kind of let us down in the last few seasons. Last year's game up in Dingwall where we get beat 3-2, a bloody prime example of that. The good thing is I think we've already beaten them 6-0. 6-0, was it? 7? Yeah. At home. And the fact that they're coming off a bit of a 5-0 gubbing off Celtic, it should be a fairly routine win for us, but life as a Rangers fan these last few years haven't really been as plain sailing as they probably should be. Do you think it is going to be one of those stuffy games, or do you think, given the bounce the players should be getting off that performance of Wednesday night, that we should be going in a wee bit more arrogant to these types of games?
Well, at the end of the day, if we turn up, we win. We've got better players now. If we turn up, we're going to win. It wouldn't surprise me if it's another stuffy game, if I'm honest. But last week, and again, I said it in the pod I was on with Craig, last week I thought wasn't a great performance. We were never out of control. St Johnstone barely threatened. We were always winning that game. And although it was 1-0 from an OG and we didn't really play that well, it doesn't really matter. Not really. As you say, these are the games that have let us down. So as long as it's stuffy and it's 1-0 and we get 3 points, I'm kind of okay with that, because we just need to get the points in the bag. But of course, you get greedy, and you want the team to continue their momentum. So if we can play another good, solid, flowing attacking game, rack up a few goals, then that'll be just the ticket to put us into a really big week. Because momentum is key in sport; it always is. And if we can do something like that, pull something together in that kind of performance, then it gives us belief going into these two games. I mean, I don't know, I hate it, right? I hate it when Rangers fans see a game coming up and say, "Oh, I'm worried. Oh, this could be terrible. Come on, man up, son." Do you know what I mean? If you're going into games scared, then just stay at home. Don't even think about it. And people were scared of this cup final. They were scared of this cup final. There's no doubt about it. Whereas now, the way the players are performing, the way they've turned it around, suddenly we've got a bit of belief. Suddenly it's a bit kind of, hang on, maybe we can do this. and momentum is key to that. So I really, really hope we can keep up that momentum on Sunday. Now, the Spurs game, right, it's a bit of a free hit because we've got 10 points already, which should be enough to see us qualify, right, touchwood. Yeah. Should be enough to see us qualify. So we've done really well with our away form in particular to get enough points on the board that this game kind of doesn't matter. Now, of course, if Scotland v England and it's Postecoglou come back, yeah, I get all that. So, of course, it matters. But if we don't win it, it's not that massive a deal in terms of our European ambitions. Okay, if we take a really sore one, like against Liverpool, that will be suboptimal. But it's a wee bit of a free hit. So, the players should be able to go out and relax a wee bit and try and play their game and see where we can get to, because then it adds on to what I was saying earlier. If, and it's a massive if we can get something out of Spurs game, then what better preparation there would be for a cup final against Celtic? Just that belief will be absolutely crucial and huge for us. But equally, I won't be losing my shit if we don't beat Spurs or lose to Spurs, because you might expect that to some extent. But we need to keep up this momentum, because the team is in a much, much better place than it was a month ago. A much better place. So there's no point being pessimistic. And why don't we just look forward to these big games, because they can be absolutely transformative for a manager and for a squad.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I agree with that. I think, as you say, it's more the momentum that we need to keep going. And the Spurs game is a bit of a free hit. We're in a good position. Anything from that is a bonus for us, is the way that I look at it. The big one's a cup final. We need to win it. I think there's no if, buts, maybes, nothing. It's a monkey that's on Clement's back at the moment, and if he wants to win the fan base over, and if he wants us to keep believing in his project, then he's going to need to beat them. And it's no good being competitive for a half or 45, 50 minutes, etc. He's got to go there and put a bit of a marker down, and the team have got to help him do that as well. Let's not forget the players sometimes have brain farts in these games, and there's nothing that Clement can do about that. So collectively as a group, to keep the goodwill and to keep that momentum going, we've got to go to Hampden the following weekend and win. And for me, I'm like you. I'll always believe that Rangers have got a chance. These games take on a kind of a mind of their own sometimes, and as long as you've got players out there who are going to fight and scrape for that, you've got a chance. You might be playing against better quality, but if you can put the work in and you can put the fight in, it's still 11v11. Yeah,
and that's it. And it's, as you say, it's absolutely pivotal for the manager, because he can't go. I think this would be his sixth. If he loses this one, going 6-0 games without winning one is the worst ever. No Rangers manager will ever have that poor a record. Yeah. And that'll be really, really hard for him to recover from. And he has got some credit in the bank recently. Maybe turned around a bit. He was on the brink of it after Dundee United. It's maybe turned around a wee bit. But we've got to look at it. Think, look at that performance in Nice. Look at Malmo. Look at Olympiacos. Even Kiev away to some extent. These are tough games that we've done well in, by and large. We just seem to have this kind of mental block against Celtic. The game at Parkhead earlier in the season, we should have gone 1-0 up in that game. We started the better team, and Clement has been unlucky. Basically we get a goal disallowed every game, right? That's just the way it's going to go. So we're going to get one goal disallowed on weekend Sunday, so we're going to have to score a few. But he has been unlucky. Although his record's poor, the games have been tighter than the record might suggest, and we have to take belief from that. We have to take belief from it, because there'll be quite a few old firm debutants on that cup final. And we need to make sure that they can take the game to them. Again, be fast, be fit, go with two up front, go with Hadji and Mai, give them something to think about, and let's see where we can get to. Because it's absolutely massive for the way this season's going to go. But you have to look at these things. Like, I always look at these things as opportunities. We won't be favourites, obviously. We may well lose. Okay, right, fine. They've got a better squad than us at the minute. But you've got to look at it as an opportunity, because if you can win it, the whole momentum, the whole atmosphere around the club changes. Everything. Now, I'm not saying it will change to the extent of us then winning the league, because that's a massive uphill struggle. But it just changes absolutely everything. And then we've got another game at Ibrox again on the 2nd of January. And suddenly it's like, well, hang on, we can win this. And everything comes that way. So it has to be an opportunity to change the narrative. That's the way the players have to look at it.
Yeah. You talk about momentum. That could potentially shift momentum quite significantly if we beat them cup final, take the 3 points at Ibrox. All of a sudden, it might make a difference. And that's all we can do. We've just got to keep winning and and improving as a team. You know, and if we can keep doing that, then the rest of the stuff will take care of itself. So
yeah, I think so. I think so. But yeah, so who's doing the cup final preview show? Because I think we've probably just done it, haven't we?
No. There'll be much more in depth chat on that. I guess the only thing we've got to do, mate. I've got to put you on the spot. Last thing, what's going to be the score on Sunday up at Dingwall?
3-0 to the good guys.
3-0 to the good guys. Good.
And we'll probably, I'll predict it'll be 3-0 to the good guys, and we'll get a penalty as well. We'll get our first penalty of the season in the league, and it'll be slightly ropey. And then the following week will just be full of phone in saying, penalty at Rangers, penalty, you know, and we know how it's going to go. It's the way it goes every time. See it coming a mile off. You know, that's how it will go on Sunday. What about you? Prediction?
I was going to say 3-0 as well, mate. To be honest, I think it should be a comfortable victory for Rangers. To be honest, mate, and it would be good to have two of them on the bounce for a change.
Yeah. We deserve it. Surely we deserve it. It's Christmas. Come on.
Absolutely. That's us for tonight, folks. I just want to say a massive thank you to my guest, Alan. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. It was a really good chat. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the bus next Thursday.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, folks, as well as being live on YouTube tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms. That's iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, etc. We'll be back on Sunday at 9:30 with our flagship show to review another Goal Fest as we head to Dingwall. Big Ray's going to be your host for that one with Stuart Weir and Chris Jack as his guests. So it's sure to be a fantastic listen. All that's left for me to say is a massive thank you to all those who have been watching us live on YouTube. And thanks to you all again for listening. Have a great weekend, folks. And hopefully we can close it this week with another fantastic performance and victory for the team.